سلام كميت خونو خميا اللخوم لمسكا قدم أبلنا آتينا مش alright حزب الله برها اللي ودحاو باي لما عن تنوح ساعات كلوا نايبزين يا دمت اسمع انت ليس كحد حدا بلو سمع الله هذا صبق دمت اسمع الله هذا أنا حدا بلو ما alright متقلل لنا كل تشحن 24 جيروم باول ويكا فدرال تاخبلو نايم and then نخلي تشحن 25 كفدرال انتايكم صلنايم زي أنا هريجي اوكي اسكي سمع انت اللي حدا بلني قلبنا بزخونه متاوي يس سمع الله مش alright دول اللي I like it سمع الله thank you guys alright thank you اسكي قرب كساب سباز كوبنا we have نصبيو انتاينا نصبيو almost ربع دقيقة لنا بلومبورغ انت ام زبدلو نسمعهم بزعبا زين
is great again on the t-shirt and you just have to wonder why, right?
Yeah, I just call it American exceptionalism, and you see it sounds like Dan Fuss 101, credit upgrades. I mean, that's what you're talking about.
Looking for more of the same through the next year. There's a lot of bullishness out there. Bob Michael of JP Morgan sticking with us. Up next on the program, Ellen Zettner of Morgan Stanley alongside Kathy Jones of Charles Schwab. From New York City, that Fed rate decision is coming right up.
نسخم زخدا يخد حراي احوات انتاينا خنصبه thank you انتاينا نصبه مجمريا اتينا يزحلفه سامري زهابونا كنرينا حجي انتاي يقيروا اذا زقيروا انتاي وسانيتيا ني ماركتنا so far ماركتنا شر قبركم انتاي مسل الله قدم زخونه ነገር جيروم باول مزرابون ويكا ريت كات مهلاونان marketna very much like S&P حزليزيا S&P as of now almost 605 60 كبابلا and then Dow is 43.9 Dow is 43.599 الله and Nasdaq tick عندي 2139 الله okay زين اهلا so زين انتين اتن اندكسات ناي بزحات كامبانيات حيزن دركبا مالتي yeah single stack in the Harkena Tesla is down 472.22 what look this it was a big but it's all right Korea Tesla is one of the sensitive ناس good daisy Nvidia is good تصبق الله لهم عنتي 235 قلن Meta good 625 QQ زي اخا عندي اقداسيت كنري ازلنا stack I don't need news QQ come here QQ alright QQ حمشتن سالسان حمشتن alright so far red زلوانا ازين استباهل تسلا QQ انتاي مصالنا خلا مايكرو استراتيجي كات اوكي زين عبي تشينج خمصه تسفالنا اوكي بمقصال صبق اندحري سمع علينا ابزي ريبورت زي خيدي زي انا هريا ابزي تشيك I just want to check myself حوايت ابزي الله خدت لايفي سلودي يلن alright اوكي صبق يا سمع انت زي اللي حوات نقرنكم اب سمع انت اللي صبق سمع انت زي اللي لمينو ግን سمع هلو تسفا قبر so زي انا هركب زي لارغا اب وسط 3 ورح كبابت مصيا I got this is my small iPad my son ናይ ወደይ ማለትዩ ዝጥቀመላ እዚአን ናኽሪ ኦኬ ኣብዚአን እንታይ ተጽባኽር እንታይ ኢና ተጽቢትና ንርኢ ኣሕዋት እዚአን እንተን ቀንዲ መሰረትና ህና ኦኬ ሕጂ ፎካስና ኣብዛ ውሽጢ እዚኣ ዘላ አንህልኩም ኣብዚያ ናይ 2025 ኢና ንርኢ ዘለና ኦሬዲ 2024 ኢዝዳን ኦኬ ኣብዛ ሓለፈ ጁን ዝሃበና እዚኣቶም እዛ ሳመር እዚኣ ሕጂ ከዓ ሳመር ክንረክብና ኦራይት ንሕና GDP ናህና ኣይኮነን ኣገዳሲ GDP ኣክል 2025 2.0 ክመጽ ይብልና ኣሎ እዚ ግን ትራምፕ ክንደይ ብለሎ 3.0 ይብልና ኣሎ ረኣይዋኹም እዛ GDP እዚኣ ተቀይር ዶ ኣይተቀይርን ረኣይዋ of course GDP እዚኣ እንተቀይራ ቢግ ንሪኣና ሓንቲ ካልእ unemployment እዚኣ ነትልኩም unemployment 4.2 ኢሎምና ኣሎ yes 4.2 በፂሕና ኢና already እዚኣ ተቀይር ዶ ኣይተቀይርን ረኣይዋኹም like እዚኣ ማለት እዩ look this all right PCE صباح يزلنا ريبورت ناي PCE so far 2.3 هبمنا له زي تغير رأيواهم okay and زين the select important in مالتي so እዚን ሰለስተ ኢምፖርታንት ኣብ ልዕሊያ ክትመጽእ ኣሕዋት እንታይ እያ ዘላ እዛ ድሓር ትመጻትና ናይ ዝሓለፈ ኢላ ክትመጻና ናይ ጁን 2.0 4.2 2.3 the most important ኣብዚ ኣይና ክንርኢ ኣሕዋት look this እዚኣ ትሪዋ ዘለኹም 3.4 ንዓመታ ዝመጽእ 2025 ሬት ካት ክንደይ ክገብሩ እዮም ኣይ ነው ደሓን ክገልጸ ይኽረዳእኩም የሽዑ ምስ መጽእ እዚኣ 3.4 ዘላ እዚኣ ንኣብነት ካብ 3.9 ንላዕሊ እንድሕር ኮይና ኣብ ዝመጽእ ዓመት 2024 ሶሪ 25 ክልተ ግዜ ሬት ካት ክገብሩ ማለት እዩ so ንኢኮኖሚና ባድ ክትከውን ትኽእል እያ ካብ 3.9 ከባቢ እንድሕር ኮይና ካብ 3.9 ንታሕቲ እንድሕር ኮይና ግን bullish market እንታይ ዘለኹ ከባቢ ከምዛ ዘላታ 3.4 ክትኮን ኣይትኽእልና ምክንያቱ ክትልዕል እያ ንምንታይ ትልዕል መስልኩም ሕጂ ኣብ ዝሓለፈ 0.5 ቆሪፆም ብቐዳማይ 0.25 ሎሚ ከዓ እንድሕር 0.25 ቆሪፆም okay almost 1% 100 bp ቆሪፆም ኣለዉ ማለት ሕጂ as of now so እዚኣ ከዓ ኣብ ዝመጽእ ክንደይ ይቆርፁ እያ እታ ቀንዲ ራይትና ስለዚ እዚኣ ራይዋ እዚኣ ክትቅየር ዶ ትኸውን ለሲ እዚኣ ክትቅየር ዶ ትኸውን ንጸበ ኩለን ኣብዘን ምልክት ገይረለን ዘለኹ እተን ቀንዲ ኣገደስቲ እየን እዚኣ ትሪእዋ ዘለኹም 3.4 ከባቢ ካብ 3.4 ዘላ ክሳብ 3.9 ድሕር መጽያ ማርኬትና ጽቡቕ ክኸውን ግሪን ክኸውን ኖ ማተር ዋት ጸገም የብልና እዚኣ ታ ሞስት ኢምፖርታንት ንዓመታሲ ክንደይ ሬት ቆርፁ እዮም ንሕና ንጽበ ዘለና ኦኬ ሕጂ ቆሪፅኩም ኣለኹም ኦልሬዲ ሓደ 100% ቆሪፆም ኣለዉ ሕጂ ዋን ፉል ማለት ዋን ክብል ኢለ ዋን ቆሪፆም ኣለዉ ኦኬ ሕጂ ኸ ንዓመታ ኸ ክንደይ ቆርፁ ኦኬ what does that mean ደስ በለይ እዚኣ ሕዝዋ አይደለ ኦኬ what does that mean stop alright semi fed ክንከይድና هاب تسفى قبر كتريو alright already ساعتهم أخيلا خمس أيام هجي 96.9% rate cut على ما عندي بلنا له that's good لو من تزي قارتهم كالي عبدان دي بين قارتهم هنا ورحوات اوكي ريتنا هنا خندي كتر في رايو 4.20 كساب 4.5 اوكي 4.25 to 4.50 then كابز 4.5 نعمتها أبز مت كندي كتقدل تغل نابنت أبزها ترى يا زلا حزوا أبزها لا زلا 3.4 حكي 3.4 إن حرق قلنا كاب 4.20 almost 8.5 كقرط يوم like كلته كات اللوم بززلنا هجي كلته كات اللوم نعمتها معلش إذا اندحر تغيرها وي عين قرص اندحر كوينو ناب اخمل سوكم هجي ناب تاز نبرت I know حوات زي difficult نتم مسانا فلو زي تقبرو قليل ايكونن إذا 3.4 تريوا زلكم هجي زلنا لو معانتي مسقرص at the end of the year كندي تصبينا نرنا زي 4.4 no ازي كو باكا 4.2 تخمصي هجي اوكي 4.2 تخمصي alright 4.2 اندحر مصيو let's say كلتا غزي اندحر قريصوم next year 0.75 تقريصوم رأيو خندك تمصيا 3 almost 3.5 أكبر تمصيا إذن فاني 3.5 اندحر ترخيبنا أزا 3.4 زلا خاب بحثيرو كاب 3.4 كساب 3.9 اندحر كوينا ماركتنا بولش مخنياتو كلتا غزي قرصينا نصب زلنا alright somehow جيروم باول اندحر تغيرو اوكي ازي 3.4 انتهيبونا له معانتي ماركتنا جرين اوكي خالق ماركتنا جرين انت خغبر اي نزبل حتى 10 دقائق تعرفنا الاحوال خالق ماركتنا انت جرين خغبر اي نزبل حتى خام نسو انتايلنا hey economy is strong داتانا صبقالو inflation is a piece in هلكم inflation almost ناب 2% نخيدالنا unemployment rate now صبقالو 4 point زلو زيون صبقالو we are strong already control جرنا انا اندحر زي عينت قالات ويكا بولش خونه قالات تزاريبنا خا ماركتنا is going to be great alright so حما قال اندحر تزاريبو خنغروكم يدحان ابزي ريبورت خا حما انت رخيبنا ماركتنا is going to be red أحب حسكم تكون تسفى قبر أنا أتوقع قبل هذه زي سب قبر أوكي so far سمع الله خليته بق yeah down payment for 9%. Oh, Tesla, don't worry about it. What's going on with Tesla? Emma, Tesla is like rate sensitive. Yeah. Tesla, every market is waiting for the market. Market it's a look this. And what I look there. Almost 6.59 naira. Let's see. It's still Tesla market now. So what is Tesla in here? What like Tesla? How doing Tesla? Okay, QQ is like yeah, it's fine for 475.80. إزاي لعل 480 كري لنا لعل 480 كسب 409 كري لنا دحر جيروم باول like bullish وقاعد صبوني وستهيبنا أتظاهر أخم ريبورت خان دحر صبوا رخنا حما ريبورتر إنا could be down زيارة نبر 400 سان داون كوني خليه كون تحتون قصلي خليه كنري إنا مالك all right كال as of now January rate cut comes in market na zagir zallo kam zallowa ጥሩ ዋላ ሓንቲ ብላን አማርች ግን rate cut comes ለና ኤም ዝገብር ዘሎ ኦኬ አማርክ 1 አለና ናብ 400 ከመጽኢ ማለት እዩ just now እዚ ክቃየር ይኽእል እዩ ካለ ጽባሕ እንታይ ንጽበ ታጊው ታ PSCE ትብል ጽባሕ look this PCE almost minus ክንደይ ክውስኽ 0.2 2.5 So yeah, a little hike تكونيا for sure 2.5 ترخيبنا صبوت يا مالك. All right, let's go. Let's go if there is any 10 minutes لنا قال Nvidia is doing great. تزنبره ناي بعل China قال إزنبره one Nvidia doing great. Palantir is doing great. Yeah, market is doing great by the way. Overall quality. Do شو عتد قال لنا. What did I stop this?
They're very certain about December being a cut, and they're pretty certain about January being a pause.
They're going to wait and see what the Trump administration wants to do and if those policies are inflationary.
Powell is going to be sticking to this idea that we don't guess, we don't speculate, and we don't assume.
We are looking for a Fed that remains very sensitive.
Sort of take a pause after this rate cut and reassess. I'm going to be very interested, though, to see whether there's a dissent. Will Mickey Bowman just say, you know, I was not 100% on board last time and I'm really not on board this time? Or whether Powell will be able to get a consensus.
It comes at a time where we've got 4.4% basically, but plus or minus on 10-year yields. And I just wonder whether they'll talk about some of the borrowing costs and some of the deficit and how that might affect what term premium looks like going forward.
Yeah, we've got the term premium being kind of a major driver of long-term rates in 2025. And clearly there's room for it. I think a lot more room for it to go up than down from here. That, you know, informs us. Right now, you've got 10-year yield about 4.38. That's kind of pricing in a 3.5% Fed funds rate, give or take 3.5, 3.75, based on kind of long-term relationship. If that proves to be the case, this yield is not all that bad. We think, though, there's more upside risk than downside just because of the policy uncertainty and the fact that
mostly Tesla and QQ in Nasdaq management. Nasdaq is down almost.
Yeah,
I think the interesting thing is here, Ellen, Kathy, and I are all out talking to clients every day, largely in the wealth management channels. And I'm sure they've had the same conversation I've had, which is, I have too much cash, money market yields are coming down. Where do I get into the bond market? Sometimes it's munis, sometimes it's in things like income funds or opportunities funds. But there's a lot of dry powder out there that will look at
treasury bonds عن طبيب الكوان sorry treasury bonds as of now هجي 10 years مالتي 4.3 له so treasury bonds اندحر حماق نيوس رخيبو treasury bonds انت خونيو green خون جيروم باول كاب جيروم باول اندحر نيوس ناتو حماق رخيبو انت خوني treasury bond green خوني so treasury bond now تابزو لخو inflation ገና ይከደን ማለትዩ جيروم باول አይወስድ rate አይቆርጽንዩ ريت هاي قرصني زمصنا عمتا ازيا تريوا زلهم ذا جرين زل احوات ازيا اندحر جرين قصيلا بيج جرين اندحر كوينا مالت نيوس زهبنا جرام باولي ناتو زهبنا نيوس اندحر هي انا بزمصنا عمتا حسابي ريت قرص انتيلنا قالون هي نو بقى انفليشن قال اي كدن زلو ستيكال بقى ستيكلو هي لايك كمستات اندحريلنا ازي از gonna happy treasury bond is happy ምክንያቱ እዚ ይልዲ እሕዋት እሲ ኢንፍሌሽን ሃይ ኮን ኮለ እዚ ሃይ ዝሆን ማለት አይ ኖ እዚ ማቴሪያል እዚ ክብድ ክብል ይሕዋት ርዳአኒ ግን ቀስ በቀስ እንዳተረዳና ፋሚሊያርኩም ከውን ናይ ገድን ከደጋግመና ሁሉ so as of now it looks good like you know down is great 150 almost 159 bp increase get low and then S&P also 12.31 bp and then Nasdaq is 20 almost 46 bp increase get low Russell the small company good this ziaha VIX red mukhana ha tsbqti so we have a potential tarina still yeah Tesla is kind of stuck at 475.85 still I bet hatta night mali anto bet hanera all times high Nvidia is good doing great Nvidia back up get a lot okay QQ very good still kind of down so let's see what is this we have bullish I know bullish we are bullish and bazalana very true bullish
is the reason why Joe Biden lost. That's what a lot of people believe.
I spent 20 minutes before this using the Bloomberg. I even got to Hungarian forint. John, I know your place in Budapest. You cared about that.
Last year, I think down double digits against the dollar.
Yeah, for separate reasons, it really popped, but it's worth watching EM here.
Welcome back, TK. I've missed these conversations.
Well, it's just
just going out there, bringing up Hungary. Do you remember those Swiss franc mortgages all those years ago?
Yeah, the Swissy foreign mortgages.
Who would have thought we'd be talking about this 50 seconds out from the decision? But that was a real thing. That was a problem in the day.
Actually, right now, there are nodes of that happening in different places. And check out what's going on in Brazil.
Let's hope that Brazilians haven't been taking Swiss franc mortgages because they've probably been in a lot of trouble after the performance currency this year. Let's turn to the scores. That decision is 30 seconds away. Equities on the S&P 500 positive by 0.2% on the S&P. Some outperformance so far this afternoon on the Russell. The small caps up by 0.65%. If we switch at the board and get to the bond market story, check out the yield curve. We'll slice this up on the 2s, the 10s, the 30s. Yields are coming down at the front end of the curve by about 3 basis points to 421.30. On a 10-year, we're down a single basis point to 438.29. With your Federal Reserve decision, the overwhelming consensus saying a 25 basis point cut. Here's Mike McKee.
Breaking news.
It is a 25 basis point cut, and the number of cuts forecast for next year has been cut in half to just 2. Another 2 are seen in 2026 and 1 in 2027. And as the long-run Fed funds rate expectation rises to 3%. If that's basically seen as Fed officials' view of the neutral rate, they won't get there under this dot plot until 2028. We have one dissent. New Cleveland Fed President Beth Hammack casts her first, preferring to leave rates unchanged. Interestingly, 3 other members of the committee, presumably non-voters, agreed with her. 10 members see two cuts next year. 5 see 3 or more. 3 forecast 1. And there's 1 member who thinks optimal policy would be to leave rates unchanged all of 2026 and 25. There is only one change to the statement. They now promise to carefully assess incoming data, quote, in considering the extent and timing of additional adjustments to the target range for the federal funds rate. There's no change to the committee's view of inflation, which has, quote, made progress toward the committee's 2% objective, but remains somewhat elevated. The new economic forecasts, however, show both PCE headlines.
All right. It's not good, it's not good. It's not good at all. I know 25 قريص I'm good. That the most important for next year. Next year, next year. 2025. Let me show it to you. That's bad. All right, for sure. Market is not happy. All right, here you go. This is the report we have. This is the report we have. No, this is hold on. My bad. This is not my bad. No. Wait a minute. Stop. Okay. FOMC meeting. All right. 2024 January, June. I know 25 got it on November. All right. This one. Yeah, December 18, 2024. This is today. Okay. All right. Here you go. This is. Holy shit, my bad. Holy shit. All right, here you go. My bad. I'm sorry. What is our market? Let's see. What is our market? Let's see first. Coming up to report now. Webbles. Okay. There you go. QQ is not changing. Why is not doing anything? All right, it's kind of bullish. Yeah. Red, a little negative. Okay. Stop. Position, my wish list. Yeah, my goodness. Okay, let's go. Here you go. Okay. All right. شر قبركم جينا جيرون باول دحر فرق ساعة لازم تصنع تسجل ما يكون انتايبل ماركتنا شو غير خيلي. This is the one we have a report. Okay. So double check قبل هجون. Yeah نهلكم. Yeah December 18, 2024 مالك. Okay, this is the one. Look this one. Okay. My goodness. One thing. What is this? GDP, real GDP. Oh my goodness. 2024 bit 25 close in Gabrina. Oh yeah, I got to do this again. My goodness. I have to go to this too. Mark. All right, GDP. ኣብዛ ሓለፈ መስከረም እንታይ ኢሎም 2.0 ትፅቢት ገይሮም ነይሮም ሕጂ ግን 2.5 so ኣመወዳእታ ዝዓመት 2.5 no 2.5 ኣይኮነን we gonna close 2.9 by the way GDP is good. All right, 2025 down ከሆነ a little bit. GDP ማለት gross domestic product ማለት እዩ ቁጠባና ሓፈሻው ናይ እሱ ቁጠባ ዕብየት ማለት እዩ ዕብየትና kind of next year 2.1 እዚኣ ካ ትራምፕ 3% ክትከውን ኣለዋ ኢሉ ዝዛረብ ዘሎ እዩ ንርኣያ ዳሓን ፀገም ኣይኮነን. Okay, good. Cap 2.0, nap 2.0. No more recession. According this, kabza ahri kholna ናይ ምውዳቅ ማርኬት ናይ ቁጠባ ምውዳቅ ዝበሃል ዘሎ according ካብዛ ሪፖርት እዚ ኣናይሎም ማዓንቲ ተስፋ ሂቦምና ዘሎ so no more. This is, am I right? Is this the right one, right? Is this the right one? This is kind of confused. Okay. So 2.5, 2.0 ማለት እዩ. This is great. Okay. Unemployment rate, yes, 4.2. Yeah, በፅሕና ኢና already 4.2. ወላ መስከረም ቃራ 4.4 ተተጸበዩ ግን 4.2 ኢሎም ኣለው. So በፅሕና ኢና 4.2. Up 2025 4.3. My goodness, this is good, guys. No, look this. GDP نحنا 2.1 كوني negative كوني and then unemployment rate كان 4.3 this is bullish market, this is good market. Yes, PC inflation a little increase حوات. Look this 2.4 كودي مود هذا عمل 2.5 كوني هذا حلفة تسبينا 2.1 kind of inflation على حواتها رايوه 2.1 تسبينا نبرنا كل تشحن 25 inflation على almost 0.4% difference. So kind of, I'm not happy with this. Let me put it red. Is I decided 2.5. Koreana. Core, it's okay. I'm not worried. All right, this is the one. We said it. Okay, Heji 0.25 rate cut gerom. Yes, 4.4. Alana. We are good. We are good, Malay. ታዝበልኩ ቁጥር ራይዋ ካብ 3 እዚኣ እንታይ ነራ 3.4 ክሳብ 3.9 ድሕር ኮይና ፀገም የብልናን ዝብል ግምት ሄበ ነራ so we are good so this economically is a project ንሪኦ ከለና ጽቡቕ እዩ ንምፃ ኣብዚ long term ናብዚ ንምፃ ኣሕዋት 2025 ና ዘረብና this is our long term so Fed's fund rate ካብ 3.6 ክሳብ 4.1 my goodness I know ተቀይራ ካብ ዝሓለፈ ተቀይራ let me cancel this all right what is my cancel at okay እዚኣ 3.1 ክሳብ 3.6 ነራ እዚኣ ተቀይራላ of course ተቀይራ ግን ክንብል ኮልና ካብ 3.6 ካብ 4.1 ያ ቅርብ kind of stick ክህልወናይ እዚ ግን big ኣይኮነን so overall እንኳ እዚኣ high ኮነት ማለት እዩ all right next 2026 2.9 ነበረ ናብ 3.4 and then 2026 2.9 ነበረ ናብ 3.1 እዘን ቀይሕ ገይረለን ዘለኹም kind of not happy ግን overall ክንሪኦ ከለና we ተጸቢና ኢና ጽቡቕ ማርኬትና ብጣዕሚ ጽቡቕ እዩ ዘሎ ንንታይ ከም ኣገራታ ንህትልኩም እዚኣ 2.5 ምዃና ነዚን ቁርብ ቀይራትና ኣላ ማለት እዩ so overall ክንሪኦ ከለና this is okay ትጽቢትና ዳርጋ ማርኬትና እውን ክጽበ ይኽእል እዩ so ጀሮም ፓወል እንታይ ብል መጽዩ so ክንደግማ እንድሕር ኮይና እዚ ኣሕዋት እዚኣ እንድሕር ክንደግማ ኮይና ንሕና Fed's fund rate ኣብዚ መጽእ ንዓመታ ኣብ 2025 መወዳእታ ካብ ከባቢ 3.6 ክሳብ 4 ከባቢ 3.6 3.5 ክህልወና እዩ that's good ምክንያቱ ክልተ ግዜ ሬት ካት ክገብሩ ክእሉ እዮም ሕጂ ሓንሳብ እዮም ዘርኢና ዘለዉ እዚኣ ኣሕዋት ሪኦ ኣለኹም almost 1 እዮም ዘርኢና ዘለዉ ወይ ከዓ almost 2 የርኢና ኣለዉ so ሰለስተ ነይሩ ኣብ ዝሓለፈ ሪፖርትና ሰለስተ ግዜ ሬት ካት ከም ዝገብሩ እዮም ነጊሮምና ናብ ዝሓለፈ ሕጂ ግን እንታይ ኮይና ኣላ ናብ 2 ወሪዳ ኣላ ምክንያቱ ኣብዚ ዓመት እዚ ክልተ ግዜ ካት ክገብሩ ተጸቢና ሚሎምና ነይሮም ክንደይ ቆሪፆም ሰለስተ already ናይ ዓመት ኣብዚ ዓመት እዚ ኣትያ ኣላ so ናይ ዓሚ ኣብዚ ዓመት እዚ ኣትያ ኣላ so ቅድሚ ጀሮም ፓወል ኣለና ድሓን 20 ደቂቃ ንመለስ ናብቲ ማርኬትና overall ማለት it's okay it's just generally okay ኣሕዋት let me go with this I know it's bullshit okay let me go with this stop this Yeah, market should be red. Red ከሆነ I didn't ትጽቢትና ይሄ look this. Down is like down almost 106. Up never. Okay, S&P is like down almost 30 ክልተን. Yes, Nasdaq is down almost 30 ክልተን. Russell is up. ምክንያቱ እዚን the small cap company. So እንታይ እዮም ገይሮም እንታይ change ገይሮም ፈደራል ነታ ዝበልና ነታ 3.4 ነበረት ናብ 3.9 ምግባሩ እያ that's all ካልኦ አልሓንቲ ቢግ ነገር የለን look this up cancel ገይሮሎ yeah almost ናይ long term ከማን ካልኦ what let me see what
controlling
okay Fed's cut by quarter points indicated yeah quarter points indicated ገይሮሎ ቆሪጽሎ but fewer reduction ahead like እዚኣ ኣታቅነ ንዝመጽ a little reduction ኣግዲሎሞ all ተጸቢና ኢና ኣሕዋት I don't know why ማርኬትና ኣክት ክገብር ይሞ ምክንያቱ ኣብዚ ዓመት እዚ 3 ግዜ ካት ገይሮም ዘሎ ክልተ ግዜ ኢና ተጸቢና ክልተ ግዜ ሚሎምና ናሮ so one more cut ቆሪጾም ኣሎ ማለት እዩ what like look this in the moving while okay 4.25 to 4.5 back to that level of with the December indicate 25 point yeah in delivery 25 base point cut the Fed indicated that probably would only lower twice more in 2025 but look this the article the ahwat ክልተ ግዜ ጥራሕ ካት ክገብር ዝኽእል ኣብ 2025 እዚ ክንብል ከለና ግን እስኪ change this እዚ ክቀየሩን ይኽእል ጸገም ዝበሃል ወልሓንቲ የብሉን ንምንታይ of course ሰለስተ ግዜ ኢሎምና ነይሮም ኣብ ዝሓለፈ ሕጂና ክልተ ግዜ ቀይሮም ኣለዉ ምክንያቱ ኣብ ሕጂ ኣብዚ ዓመት እዚ ክልተ ግዜ ኢሎምና ነበሩ ሰለስተ ግዜ ካት ስለ ዝገበሩ እዚ just ማርኬትና ነዚኣ ጥራሕ ያሬድ ገራታ ዘላ ካልኦ አልሓንቲ ይብላል yeah market is why red that's what it is touch change look this is all red ማለት all right What others? Yeah, Tesla is down 469.52, but this is bad. No, this is normal. It's not, technically, it's not bad. I know it's red, but it could be changes. You don't Powell. Let's see what analysts said.
Which is down 1/10 from September. The economy will end this year with GDP up 2.5%. That's a 0.5 percentage point jump from their September outlook, and it is going to grow 2.1% in 2026, a significant slowdown. In one technical note, the Fed did lower the offering rate for overnight reverse repurchase agreements by 30 basis points to 4.25%. That's the same as the Fed's target range lower bound. Guys?
Mike McKee, thank you, sir. There's so much to unpack here. So let's just go with 2025 and go to the forecast. So we get a 25 basis point cut. And then they do this for 2025. GDP revised higher. Unemployment revised just a little bit lower. Right. Then go to PCE. Once again, revised just that little bit higher. So what do you get for the dot plot? The median dot was actually pointing towards 4 cuts for 2025. They've cut that in half to 2. Which basically marks the whole thing to market. This is where the market was, looking for 2 cuts in 2025, and this is what the Fed is projecting, if you consider this a projection in the median dot. Turning to the price action off the back of this, we unlock another dose of dollar strength. Euro dollar breaking down to 104.44 off the back of that move in the bond market, with yields higher at the front end of the curve on a 2-year up by 3 basis points to 4.28, on a 10-year up by a single basis point to 4.41. In the equity market off the back of that, we come off session highs. On the S&P 500, we are just about unchanged. So if you are just joining us, welcome to the program. It's a 25 basis point reduction from the Federal Reserve with a sprinkle of dissent and some big changes, Lisa, to the forecasts for 25 and beyond.
And what you can see is basically the market readjusting, but not necessarily freaking out. I think it's fascinating, the idea that Beth Hammack, the new Cleveland Fed president, is the lone dissenter. 3 non-voting members, as Michael McKee said, seem to have agreed with her. To me, this is the definition of a hawkish cut. We now have 100 basis points of rate cuts since that September meeting. Now,
I think what's important, I mean, I think about this in my own situation. My son, when I asked him what he wanted for Christmas, he asked me to donate to the homeless. And the working homeless are real.
Jerome Powell كمتي إخوات دحري almost 15 خمسة. The most important نسعة እንታይ ብለና ኡ كم زازرأخما like سامر خنقبرن دحر كوينا 2024 almost صبوت تزازيمو was good كاب تثبيتنا نلعلي ماركتنا ون هاي كوينو ريت كات لو معانت بزيرون بعشران حموشن جيروم بمقصار let me share again this one okay كدق ماكساب وايو سقاب جيروم باول متأنا اوكي ازي اخندق معنا كساب نسوز متأنا انتاي نرئي زلنا حوات look this one GDP نهنا okay again I gotta change this too to this marker. There you go. Okay, GDP nahana, look this. The most important bonus. GDP nahana 2.0 ilom naboru nab 2.1 increase kagabri. Malik kutabana skaabi ma hatsiruna nzalna. So let me change this color. Tsubo zgona qay hay gobrani tqay bad news ya gabru hawat. Okay, green. This one is green, right? GDP nahana 2.2 more data. Come on. جديد هنا أمور داتا كلتا شحن عسران حموشن تثبيتنا 2.8 نبرة كلتا نتب زيرو نبرة ناب كلتا نتب حادة إنكريس غيرو مالك جي دي بي موساحنا تبغتي ريسيشن ماركت وردقي نعمتها إلا نفره نبرنا according the summary the projection دي no good news one أبدا عمزي 2.0 تبين نبرون هلوكم ناب 2.5 إنكريس كودي yes ولا 2.5 هيكون 2.9 بس حلو so far I'm telling you 2026 kind of 2.0 نيرو 2.0 still أي تغير مالي 2027 2.1. I don't like that down coin Allah. Why? I have no idea. Let me read it down. Or down coin Allah. So it's okay. Long term 225 ka 1.8 ka 1.8 سقاب 2.2. This is good. Long term unemployment rate, look this. نحنا أبز حالة مسكرم 4.4 تتقبل المهم نبور ناكل تشحن 25 down كون like change the color أحوات sorry change the color what are you doing this فلي أحوات I'm sorry إذا كله تمهار نازلنا أنا ويتفقكم على تفكرنا جيجا خمسة هلو أوكي 4.4 زنبرة هجينا 4.3 داون كينو إذا داون مخان تبقتي unemployment عدو عل سرحتني هذا سيكو واحد يوم أكل تشحن 25 نازر بزلنا good news this is good news كلتيو إذا خلتيو اندحر إذا نيجاتيف تقولين إذا كا هاي اندحر كينو that is recession موضع ماركت الرمالات so long term unemployment كله خلنا بكل تشحن 25 كا 4.2 كا 4.5 yeah I تغيرن طبق that's great all right inflation تغيره inflation 2.1 كتود إذا حسبوا نعمة تاخل تشحن 25 still 2.5 up جرا bad news this is bad news right this is bad news معناته inflation نا allo بلنا allo إبلنا allo all right how did it 2.1 نبرت ناب 2.5 تغيره مخنياتو باري أحوات زيا this is bad news inflation ويكا الزقبابة still نعمتاون ألنا بلنالو that's okay that's why الساسل زخونت alright how about 2025 long term yeah تغيرا كاب 2.1 نبرنا long term 25 ناب كاب 2.3 ناب 2.6 كاين الله عليتي بسنك زيا غيح زيا نهلكم هدي أبز عمزي 4.4 عاتينا لنا ودينا لنا زي أها كغيرة أوكي زي غيرة no cancel somebody needs to teach me this قال لكم تمهرون لكم this alright this is okay 4.4 مالتي This should be changed by the way. I don't know why. Okay. الزيان هتلكم. This is the bad. بسنك زيا يا مريت حاوخينا. جن زيا تتصبينا أنا. 3 نعمة تاسي 3 جزية ولدكو قرص يوم إلو منانيرو. هجيجن no كلتا جزية رأينا بلنالو. أزيك غياري خلو. Yes غياري خيلو. أقام ذبحالي يبلون إزي خيار يخيلي إزي أريد جراها نازل لاتري اللهم إزي 3 نيرا ناب 3 بتشعة تمسح ورد على 4 بقولنكو عيمت أقام يلن إنتاي جرون باول كم زبلجن كن رينا مالتي alright how about the long term ترينا long term ناتان ترينا long term ممكن رأيوا look this the long term كمان تغير لا رأيوا كاب 3 بشدش ناب 3 سنة عمتا زقبابة علنا still inflation علنا according this report then زقبابة كا inflation انتلينا okay then marketنا أي حجوزن stock marketنا أي حجوزن مخنياتو like ولدنا قرص على أزيجن حكي دخو no Trump is coming don't worry about it Trump is coming this is he don't like Trump this one تدات ناتهم according to ناتهم ذهبوا ودات كمتسيات حني no yeah they are oh my goodness they are in here So they are almost all of them is what the hell is how to read that? Okay, almost all of them abzin halokum rayo. Like all of them. Some of them abzin iram. This is bad. Why abzin ala khaydam some of them? So almost all of them abzin iram. Gali yumkin zib 10 ساعات 7 gali yum kaman abzin waridam niram. So this is the dat malady. Actually, you know what? My bad. Cancel. Let me cancel all this. كلهم دات نمز قبر بمولهم نهلوهم أبزلو أبزي أسن ترجالو أبزي أنيرم 4.5 and then أبزي أزي أميم كل يوم أبزي أنيرم almost 4.5 for like almost high أمزلو كله ካብዚ ሓለፈ ዝነበረ ማለት so that's the bet that's how it is so I hope ተረዲእኩም ክትከውን ተስፋ ይገብር this is how ማለት ታይም ዝዕቅኑ ዘለው እዛ ፒሲ ከሪኦኩም ሕጂ ፒሲ ጽባሕ ዘለሃና እዚኣ ጽባሕ ሪፖርት እያ ዘለሃና ምክንያት ትሪኢኹም እንትኾንኩም እዚኣ ትፅቢትና ንዓመታት ክሳብ 2.5 ኣላ እንድሕር ንብል ኮይና እዚኣ እንድሕር ወሊዳ ያ ክቅየር ዘይክእለሉ ምክንያት የለን ማእሲ መፅና ብሕጂ ብከለኹ ክመፃኩም ዳን ክንብሎም እዚ save that come on save it all right ማእሲን ክመፅና ዝኽእሉ ብሕጂ okay ወርሕ ሓደ ኣለና okay 2025 ንክንኣቱ 23 እዚ is it gonna give me 25 no not giving me yet 25 I have it እንንዘላ ኣብዚኣ ክንርኢ 25 here you go ያ ጥሪ መወዳእታ ኣለና ክመፅዮም ንህለኹም ከምዚ ኣሳመር ግን ኣይቡናን እዮም ጥሪ ንህለኹም ክመፅዮም እንደገና ወርሒ like ማርች ወርሒ 3 ክመፅዮም ወርሒ 5 ክመፅዮም 8 ግዜ ክመፅዮም ንዓመታ መስለኒ one time 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 ግዜ ክመፅዮም ኣብዚ 8 ግዜ ንዓመታ እንታይ እዮም ክገብሩና ንዝብል ሕቶ ናብ ኣቅርብ ክደግመልኩም ክኸይድ 8 ግዜ ክመፅዮም ንህለኹም ሕዝቦ ንሕባት እዚኣቶም ጥሪ ወርሒ 1 ክመፅዮም ወርሒ 3 ወርሒ 5 ወርሒ 6 ወርሒ 7 ወርሒ 9 ወርሒ 10 ወርሒ 11 8 ግዜ መፅዮም እንታይ ክቡናዮም ኣብዚ 8 ግዜ እዚኦም ሲ ክንደይ ግዜ ሬት ካ ጥራሕ እንብልና ዘለዎ ተሪኢኹም almost like 2 times ጥራሕ holy shit what are you doing all right that's why kind of changed ማለት all right how about ናብታ ከሪኦኩም እንታይ ኣዚኣ ኣይቲ the most ዘተኩርላ ዘሎ this one PC ጽባሕ ትመፅእ friday PC ንህልኩም ራይዋ እዚኣ year to year 2.5 ኢሎማ ዘሎ እዚኣ ሲ ዓመታ ሙሉእ 2.5 ክትውዲ ኣብልና ኣሎ no almost 2.1 ትጸቢና ነበርና እዚኣ ንዓመታ ሙሉእ year over 2.1 that's what it is ማርኬትና ቀይራታ ዘላ ካብ ክልተ ግዜ ሬት ካት ናብ እዚኣ ምጽማ ዘሎ so how about let's share this okay already December is done December ወዲና okay December is done ተቆሪጻ ወዲና ኣለና ወለድና current 4.5 to 4.75 ዘሎ እዚኣ ክትቀይራ ኣለዋ 4.25 to 4.50 ክትቀይራ ኣለዋ okay that's the most important ማለት ነው then ካለ ንህለኩም ጥሪ ክመፅዮም ጥሪ እንታይ ኣለና 88% ኣይቆርፅን እዮም ክልተ ግዜም ቆርፁ ማዓስ ዳሎም ቆርፁ ማርች ያ ማርቹን አይቆርፅን እዮም 51% I need to refinance come on I have this bill a lot to pay ማዓስ ዳሎም እስኪ ኣኮሪና እዚ ቅየር ክእል ይሕዋት ናይ 45 ኣማይ በቃ 0.25 ቆርፁ okay what is it okay let's see how market yeah I know it's going to be it's fine it's going to be red but don't worry about it what Jerome Powell እንታይ ብለና is the most important 15 ደቂቃ ኣለቶ what is this ማለት ይሕዋት Fed fund rate ኣብዚ okay Fed fund rate sorry about that all right this is not here you go this is እዚና ንዛረብ ዘለና ሕዋት as of now እዚ ቅየር ይግደፎ እዚ 4.6 ዘሎ already na 4. ክንደይ ወሪድና ኢና ምክንያቱ ለማዓንቲ ሪኢኹም ናብ 4.25 to 4.5 ኢና ወሪድና ዘለና እዚ ቅየር ፀገም ኣይኮነን እዚና ንዘልና ሕዋት እዚ ምጉዳል ማለት ወለድና ጎድል ኣሎ ካለ ወለድና ምጉዳል ማለት ሕዝኒ ሲምፕል ተርም ኣብዚያ እዚ ምጉዳል ማለት ወለድ ምጉዳል ባንኪ ገንዘብ ክልቅሕ እንድሕር ኮይነን ብውሕድ ልቃሕ ይረኽባ ዘን ኣነ ገዛ ክገዝእ መኪና ክገዝእ ቢዝነስ ክልቅሕ እንድሕር ኮይነ እንድሕር ባንኪ ነንሕል ዒደን ድዩ ካብ መንግስቲ እንድሕር ብውሕድ ልቃሕ ይረኽባልየን ንዓይ ከዓ ብውሕድ ልቃሕ ይባኒ ወለድ ማለት እዩ ብውሕድ ወለድ እንድሕር ሂበናኒ ኢዚ ማኒ ኣብ ማርኬት ክመፃና ንፅበልና ዳሳውርስ እሳይታ ተርም ኦኬ እንድሕር ወለድ ሃይ ኮይኑ ባንኪ ብቀለለ ገንዘብ ክረኽባ ይክእላኒ ሃይ ወለድን ክረኽባ ሃይ ወለድ ረኺበን ነቲ ካስተመረን ነቲ ዝህቦ ገዛ ምግዛእ ንኣብነት ንበል ነቲ ካስተመረንካ እዚ ክንዲ ዝኾን የመሓላልፈሉ ፕላስ ናይ ባዕለን ከመሓላልፋልየን so 8% 7% መፅ so ኢዚ ማኒ የለን ሰብ ሃይ ወለድ እንድሕር ኮንካ ትኸፍል كيركا كتلقى حيت خلن كيركا جزا خد جزا عيت خلن كيركا مكينة خد جزا عيت خلن ولا حانتي عيت جبر سلازي ازي كوادرد كخل على اوكي ايزي ما ندحر كوينو ولد ندحر تحيتو زخونه سب حبا جنزب حبا هبن خبلي هبن مسبلكا دان كيركا نسخا انت تقبر تغلا جنزب مسرقبكا ستوري لك خلع ستور كتوسخ كتقافح دخا دلي بيزنس دخا توصل دلي جزا دخا تجز دلي زين جنزب مسمصه نابنت كلاي جزا ندحر جزيكا جنزب هيبكا جزا تجزا لها جزا مس جزاكا ام ماركت معات جنزب تقتل لها ام ماركت معات جنزب مسأته خانسخا سراحتኛ ቁጽር ዮ መንግስት خصبي كل ተም ካምፓኒታት ገንዘብ ረኺበን ፕሮፊት ረኽባ ፕሮፊት ሰረኽባ ቴስላ በል ኢንቪዲያ በል ኩለን ቃ ሃይ ሆነ term that's it so how influence this better that's the most important ንኣብነት like rate update ንከይድ ንሕዋር this is as of now I know mortgage ንሓር ንሓደ 30 ዓመት ሎን ከነውጽ ኮይና almost 6.9 አሎ plus አሎ still kind of moderate lower كون تثبت علينا so زين تايم عليتي ندحر let's say نا mortgage calculator كيدنا 450 زوقع جزا خدجز انت ليخا 10% داون بيمنت ولا غبرلا ب 6% ندحر كوينا እዚ خنو قول لينا እንታይ ማዕረኹ እንደይ ጽልዋ ከም ዝምጻልካ እዚ 00 ክንገብረና ግደፎ don't worry about it okay 450 شح بذا زلا 6.9 رينا انا ناشونال وايد اندحر نزا غزا زي خدغزا خون 10% look this نسخه اب 30 عمت انترست خندك تكفلها almost 500 شح تكفلها 493 እዚ አንድ ሃለው ተደፋፊረ አጥቂ ኢለን ተልካኒ ያخد አጥخላ ዓም ተልካ ጸገም አይኮነን ግን ፔመንት ካ ክፍሊትካ ወርሓዊ እዚ ይኾናሉ ኦኬ ሃባ እዚያ እዚያ ክትወርድ ደልያልና ሃባ ትሕዝን እዚያ እሞ እዚኣ ኸ እንድሕር ኣብዚኣ ከምጻልኩም ይዋ ከለኹ እዚኣ ኸ ናብ 5 ተኸዲዳ ራይዋ ናብ 5 ተወሪዳ እዛ ክፍሊትካ ኣብዚኣ ዋላ ትሕዟ ትኽሉ 493 شح ትብዘላ ክንደይ ክትኮን ያ ወይ ከዓ እዛ 2300 ወርሓዊ ትብዘላ ክንደይ ክትከዳ لكتس 335 100 almost 140 150 شح قنيسه هالكا ابزيها ورحوها كباب 400 قنيسه ازينا نزرب زلنا سو ازي عند حراليا عقم خاي او شحن 900 المورجج مخفالاي سني انا كون 2 بيدروم 3 بيدروم كو almost 2 شحن حدا 100 كو زغفل اون باي هم كنبلنا مالتي غزا خنبلنا انا امنت زبزلهم لان غزا تلكا ندخل بروسس كيد كلها كلهم بل almost 6 7 ተሳተፍ ሰም ደሞዝ ረኽብለው ትዋድ ሸይ ዘሎ ደሞ ገንዘብ ረክባሎ ደሞዝ መንግስት ረኽብከኻ ቀረጽ ዝኽፈላሎ ቀረጽ ምስከፈልከኻ መንግስት ኢንካም ይገብር ኩላ ሰራሐላ that's how this እዚ አይና እንጽበ ዘለና ኦራ ግዜ ኮቪድ ኮዚ ኮ ክንደይ ነይሩ መስልኩም 2.65 አለና አን ባዕለ ሪፋይናንስ ገበርኮ ገዛ look this ጠቅላላ 2.65 ክንደይ ኢንተረስት ይኸፍል ሰብዚ 162 Are you crazy? شحن 400 payment خداهم كله. Fix it, right? Oh, Salasa, Jerome Powell is here. My God. Alright, guys, you gotta tell me that. Jerome Powell is here. Let me go. Where you go?
That Diane was talking about. Do you agree?
I'm really pleased you brought up Neil Dutter's note. If you go to the bottom of this note, Neil from Renmac, of course, there's an interesting line here on the incoming administration. There is plenty of speculation of what the Trump administration will do, but they have to actually walk through the door. The Fed ought to focus on the here and now. The risk is now that the economy slows and the Fed is passively tightening by doing nothing. And here's the kicker, I think the punchline. Curious that the Fed was about to cut 100 basis points and then all of a sudden stops as Trump walks through the door. Diane, how much of these moves, the change to the forecast that we're seeing, are about the incoming data since September, and how much of it is about expected changes to policy that will shape that data in the years to come?
Well, we do know that with the continuing resolution that they're talking about a fairly large increase in
over the past 2 years. The labor market has cooled from its formerly overheated state and remains solid. Inflation has moved much closer to our 2% longer run goal. We're committed to maintaining our economy's strength by supporting maximum employment and returning inflation to our 2% goal. To that end, today, the Federal Open Market Committee decided to take another step in reducing the degree of policy restraint by lowering our policy interest rate by a 1/4 percentage point. We also decided to continue to reduce our securities holdings. I'll have more to say about monetary policy after briefly reviewing economic developments. Recent indicators suggest that economic activity has continued to expand at a solid pace. GDP rose at an annual rate of 2.8% in the third quarter, about the same pace as in the second quarter. Growth of consumer spending has remained resilient, and investment in equipment and intangibles has strengthened. In contrast, activity in the housing sector has been weak. Overall, improving supply conditions have supported the strong performance of the U.S. economy over the past year. In our summary of economic projections, committee participants generally expect GDP growth to remain solid, with a median projection of about 2% over the next few years. In the labor market, conditions remain solid. Payroll job gains have slowed from earlier in the year, averaging 173,000 per month over the past 3 months. The unemployment rate is higher than it was a year ago, but at 4.2% in November, it has remained low. Nominal wage growth has eased over the past year, and the jobs to workers gap has narrowed. Overall, a broad set of indicators suggests that conditions in the labor market are now less tight than in 2019. The labor market is not a source of significant inflationary pressures. The median projection for the unemployment rate in the SEP is 4.2% at the end of this year and 4.3% over the next few years. Inflation has eased significantly over the past 2 years, but remains somewhat elevated relative to our 2% longer run goal. Estimates based on the Consumer Price Index and other data indicate that total PCE prices rose 2.5% over the 12 months ending in November, and that, excluding the volatile food and energy categories, core PCE prices rose 2.8%. Longer-term inflation expectations appear to remain well anchored, as reflected in a broad range of surveys of households, businesses, and forecasters, as well as measures from financial markets. The median projection in the SEP for total PCE inflation is 2.4% this year and 2.5% next year, somewhat higher than projected in September. Thereafter, the median projection falls to our 2% objective. Our monetary policy actions are guided by our dual mandate to promote maximum employment and stable prices for the American people. We see the risks to achieving our employment and inflation goals as being roughly in balance, and we are attentive to the risks on both sides of our mandate. At today's meeting, the committee decided to lower the target range for the federal funds rate by a 1/4 percentage point to 4.25% to 4.5%. We've been moving policy toward a more neutral setting in order to maintain the strength of the economy and the labor market, while enabling further progress on inflation. With today's action, we have lowered our policy rate by a full percentage point from its peak, and our policy stance is now significantly less restrictive. We can therefore be more cautious as we consider further adjustments to our policy rate. We know that reducing policy restraint too fast or too much could hinder progress on inflation. At the same time, reducing policy restraint too slowly or too little could unduly weaken economic activity and employment. In considering the extent and timing of additional adjustments to the target range for the federal funds rate, the committee will assess incoming data, the evolving outlook, and the balance of risks. We're not on any preset course. In our summary of economic projections, FOMC participants wrote down their individual assessments of an appropriate path for the federal funds rate, based on what each participant judges to be the most likely scenario going forward. The median participant projects that the appropriate level of the federal funds rate will be 3.9% at the end of next year and 3.4% at the end of 2026. These median projections are somewhat higher than in September, consistent with the firmer inflation projection. These projections, however, are not a committee plan or decision. As the economy evolves, monetary policy will adjust in order to best promote our maximum employment and price stability goals. If the economy remains strong and inflation does not continue to move sustainably toward 2%, we can dial back policy restraint more slowly. If the labor market were to weaken unexpectedly or inflation were to fall more quickly than anticipated, we can ease policy more quickly. Policy is well positioned to deal with the risks and uncertainties that we face in pursuing both sides of our dual mandate. On a technical note, we lowered the offering rate on our overnight reverse repo facility to align it with the bottom of the target range for the federal funds rate, its typical configuration. Technical adjustments of this kind have no bearing on the stance of monetary policy. The Fed has been assigned two goals for monetary policy: maximum employment and stable prices. We remain committed to supporting maximum employment, bringing inflation sustainably to our 2% goal, and keeping longer-term inflation expectations well anchored. Our success in delivering on these goals matters to all Americans. We understand that our actions affect communities, families, and businesses across the country. Everything we do is in service to our public mission. We at the Fed will do everything we can to achieve our maximum employment and price stability goals. Thank you, and I look forward to your questions.
All right. It was good. Actually, ጽቡቕ ዝኾነ like ወላ ሓንቲ ሓድሽ ነገር የለን. It's very good. ጽቡቕ ተዛሪቡ እቲ ዝገበሮ ይደግም ነይሩ. question ኣለና ሕጂ ሕቶን መልስን እንታይ ኢሎም ክሓትዎም እንታይ ልክምለስ. That's the most important part. ኣብ ሕቶ. Let's focus on that. Thank you. Let's go.
Gina Smilek with the New York Times. Thank you for taking our questions.
New York Times.
I wonder if you could talk a little bit about why officials think it's appropriate to cut rates at all in 2025 if inflation is expected to remain firm throughout the year. And what would you expect at this point the timing might look like? Would a January cut potentially be possible, or does a pause next month seem more likely?
Well, so let me start by saying why we cut today and then move to 2025. So I would say today was a closer call, but we decided it was the right call because we thought it was the best decision to foster achievement of both of our goals: maximum employment and price stability. We see the risks as two-sided, moving too slowly and needlessly undermine economic activity in the labor market, or move too quickly and needlessly undermine our progress on inflation. So we're trying to steer between those two risks. And on balance, we decided to go ahead with a further cut, and I'll give you some details on why. Downside risks to the labor market do appear to have diminished, but the labor market is now looser than pre-pandemic, and it's clearly still cooling further, so far in a gradual and orderly way. We don't think we need further cooling in the labor market to get inflation down to 2%. Job creation is now well below the level, or certainly below the level that would hold unemployment constant. The job finding rate is low and declining, and other measures such as surveys of workers and businesses, quits, things like that, broadly show a much cooler labor market than we had in 2019. It's still quite gradually cooling. So we keep an eye on that. Inflation, we see that story as still broadly on track, and I'll tell you why. We've made a great deal of progress. 12-month core inflation, as I mentioned, through November is estimated at 2.8%, down from a high of 5.6%. 12-month inflation has actually been moving sideways as we are lapping the very low readings of late last year. Housing services inflation actually is steadily coming down now, albeit at a slower pace than we might like, but it has now come down substantially, and it is making progress slower than hoped. And we've had recent high readings from non-market services and some bumpiness for goods. So I'll just say, so remember that we coupled this decision today with the extent and timing language in the post-meeting statement that signals that we are at or near a point at which it will be appropriate to slow the pace of further adjustments. You ask about 2025. I think that the slower pace of cuts for next year really reflects both the higher inflation readings we've had this year and the expectation that inflation will be higher. You saw in the SEP that risks and uncertainty around inflation we see as higher. Nonetheless, we see ourselves as still on track to continue to cut. I think the actual cuts that we make next year will not be because of anything we wrote down today. We're going to react to data. That's just a general sense of what the committee thinks is likely to be appropriate.
Sorry, just one quick follow-up. Why, I guess, would you make those cuts? Like, what would be the trigger to cut?
So we're to cut further after this point. I would say it this way: we've reduced our policy rate now by 100 basis points. We're significantly closer to neutral. At 4.3% and change, we believe policy is still meaningfully restrictive. But as for additional cuts, we're going to be looking for further progress on inflation, as well as continued strength in the labor market. And as long as the economy and the labor market are solid, we can be cautious about as we consider further cuts. And all of that is reflected, to your question, in the December SEP, which shows a median forecast of down 2 cuts next year compared to 4 in September.
Howard Schneider with Reuters, and thanks for the opportunity to ask you a question. So this does seem similar to the dynamic in 2016 during the last transition to a Trump administration, where the committee saw slightly tighter policy, in part in expected anticipation of the fiscal policy stance that was seen evolving over the year. Some of it was a data mark-to-market exercise, and some of it was anticipation of fiscal. What's the split on this one? How much of this was accounting for inflation data that was coming in, and how much of it is expecting that there will be inflationary fiscal policy next year?
I'd say I'd point to 5 or 6 things, and let me start by saying that we think the economy is in a really good place, and we think policy is in a really good place. Let's remember that the economy is growing 2.5% this year, that inflation has come down by 50% from 5.6% to 2.6%. Headline inflation is 2.5% on a 12-month basis. We're actually in a really good starting place here. But since, so what's really driving the slower rate cut path? First thing is growth is stronger, right? The economy grew faster in the second half of 2024 so far than we had expected, and is expected to be above what our expectations in September next year as well. Unemployment is lower, and in the SEP you'll see that participants think that the downside risks are less and uncertainty is less. So that's more strength, right? Inflation is higher, as we talked about. Inflation's higher this year. It's also higher in the forecast next year. I'd also point out that we're closer to the neutral rate, which is another reason to be cautious about further moves. But then getting to your point, there's also there's uncertainty. Uncertainty around inflation, I pointed out, is actually higher. It's also in the case of some people. The way I would say it is this: some people did take a very preliminary step and start to incorporate highly conditional estimates of economic effects of policies into their forecasts at this meeting, and said so in the meeting. Some people said they didn't do so, and some people didn't say whether they did or not. So we have people making a bunch of different approaches to that. But some did identify policy uncertainty as one of the reasons for their writing down more uncertainty around inflation. The point about uncertainty is it's kind of common sense thinking that when the path is uncertain, you go a little bit slower. It's not unlike driving on a foggy night or walking into a dark room full of furniture. You just slow down. And so that may have affected some of the people. But as I said, there's a range of approaches on the committee.
If I could follow up on that, you mentioned the risk and uncertainty indexes toward the back of the document. The upside risk to inflation jumped quite substantially. The only thing really that's happened, you mentioned that the disinflationary story remains intact, yet the risk weighting has jumped to the upside. The only real thing that's happened is November 5th in the meantime. Is it fair to say that that's what's driving the higher sense of upside risk on inflation?
Actually, that's not the only thing that's happened. What's happened is that our forecasts for inflation for this year, I think, are 0.5 higher than they were in September. So you had 2 months of higher inflation in September and October. As I mentioned, November is back on track. But once again, we've had a year-end projection for inflation, and it's kind of fallen apart as we've approached the end of the year. So that is certainly a large factor in people's thinking. I can tell you that might be the single biggest factor is inflation has once again underperformed relative to expectations. It's still going to be between 2.5 and 3. It's way below where it was, but we really want to see progress on inflation. As I mentioned, as we think about further cuts, we're going to be looking for progress on inflation. We have been moving sideways on 12-month inflation as the 12-month window moves. That's in part because inflation was very, very low measured in the fourth quarter of 2023. Nonetheless, as we go forward, we're going to want to be seeing further progress on bringing inflation down and keeping a solid labor market.
Chris.
Thank you, Chris Rugaber at Associated Press. Thanks for taking the question. In September 2018, the Fed staff in the Teal Book discussed a policy of looking through any new tariffs as long as there were one-time increases and inflation expectations remained anchored. Could you comment on if that analysis remains effective and any other thinking on tariffs generally that you can share?
So I do think that the September 2018 Teal Book alternative simulations are a good place to start. I happen to have brought them here with me today. I'm sure you have them too. They're a good starting point. And I would just say, it's 6 years old analysis, but nonetheless, this is still, I think, the right questions to ask. And, there were two simulations. One was seeing through, one was not. And I'd point there's some language in the see-through paragraph that says, that considers situations in which it might be appropriate to see through inflation, and then names some conditions that in which it might not be. In any case, this is not a question that's in front of us right now. We won't face that question. We don't know when we'll face that question. What the committee's doing now is discussing pathways and understanding, again, the ways in which tariff-driven inflation can affect tariffs can affect inflation in the economy, and how to think about that. So we've done a good bit of work. All of us have, each of us has, and it puts us in position when we finally do see what the actual policies are to make a more careful, thoughtful assessment of what might be the appropriate policy response.
Great. And just a quick follow. Given the recent bout of inflation that we've been through, with consumers seeing how prices can rise and businesses seeing that they can raise prices at least for some time, does that make it a little bit riskier to look through tariffs? I mean, do you feel you have to respond more quickly to inflation threats, given what we've seen the past few years?
So the main thing is, and this is also a point in these alternative simulations, is there are just many, many factors that go into how much tariffs will even go into consumer inflation. How persistent will that be? And so we just don't know really very much at all about the actual policies. So it's very premature to try to make any kind of conclusion. We don't know what will be tariffed from what countries, for how long, in what size. We don't know whether there'll be retaliatory tariffs. We don't know what the transmission of any of that will be into consumer prices. To your point as well, I wouldn't say that we know whether the last episode is or is not a good model for what happened. You pointed out we've just been through a period of high inflation. We've just gotten through that period. That's a difference. There was also quite a bit of diversion of trade away from China to other countries since that. That may have effects. I don't know. I just think we need to take our time, not rush, and.
إذا حطوا بالطعم أزياء قداسة أحوات. I think so. Chris is the one he nominated Mr. Trump عليه. بزعبات ناي ترف تمتزلو inflation كفتر نزبل ناي China بل ناي Mexico بل Canada بل كالت زقبروزلو. Very important questions. So that's why nazi bad news hubnazolo. By the way, it's not bullish today. It's like overall bad report is hubnazolo Jerome Powell, but it's okay. That question is asked about very important. All right, let's go.
Make a very careful assessment, but only when we've actually seen what the policies are and how they're implemented. And we're just not at that stage. We're at the stage of doing what other forecasters are doing, which is kind of thinking about these questions, but not trying to get to definitive answers for some time.
Nick Timros of the Wall Street Journal. Chair Powell, to make sure I understand, participants today revised up their core PCE inflation projection for 25 so that the central tendency runs from 2.5% to 2.7%. And as Howard noted earlier, most of the committee sees the risks to those projections to the upside. So if inflation only declines next year from 2.8 to 2.5 to 2.7, what would compel the committee to be cutting in that situation?
Let me find these numbers. So we have inflation coming down, core inflation coming down to 2.5 next year. That'd be significant progress. You see a slower path. I think that does take on board that we want to see real progress, but we'd be seeing meaningful progress to get inflation down to that level. That wouldn't be all the way to 2%, but that would be better than this year. This year will be 2.8 or 2.9. That would be meaningful. We also have to think about the labor market, and while we have the labor market forecast as being in good shape, we are also mindful that it is still out there very gradually cooling so far in an orderly, gradual.
All red except NVIDIA right now. Valentine is all still all red. Market እቲ ዝህቦ ዘሎ ጀሮም ፓወል ብጣዕሚ ኣይተሓጎሰን this is all red except Valentine. I don't know why Valentine. Okay, yeah, Nvidia is fine. Nvidia fine ከም ትኾን ርድኢ ማለት እዩ ምክንያቱ ወስ 3.5% increase ገይራ ነይራ still hold ገይራት ኣላ. Valentine is still hold 1.77%. So mostly all our market is red ማለት እዩ happy ኮነን ምስ ዝገብሮ ዘሎ ወይ ከዓ ዝዛረቦ ዘሎ it's just not only it's bearish blue downside. Tesla is all the way down to 465. Tesla ሎም ወይ ጽባሕ ወይ ከዓ ኣብዚ መወዳእታ እዚ ሰሙን እዚ almost not 500 ተጸብያ ነበር nice way down ማለት እዩ as of now almost 3% down ገይራላ Tesla. I don't know, it's just somebody needs to buy it. Not personal advice, something coming. All right, let's go.
That's not any decision that we made at all. Let me explain extent and timing. So the sense of that wording is to make clear that if the economy does evolve about as anticipated, we're at a point at which it would be appropriate to slow the pace of rate cuts. So extent, that just relates to how much further we can reduce our policy rate consistent with getting to a neutral stance. Clearly that distance has shrunk by 100 basis points. So it's significantly smaller. So that's the extent question. And we're going to be looking for further progress on inflation as well as a strong labor market to make those cuts. Timing just suggests again that we're at a place where we assuming the economy develops as expected, we're at or near a level that will make it appropriate to slow the pace of adjustment. So that's what we mean by that. We're not trying to make decisions about the longer run. We're trying to make sensible policy as we go. And I just would emphasize the uncertainty, which is it's just a function of the fact that we expect significant policy changes. There's nothing really unusual about that. I think we need to see what they are and see what the effects they will have. We'll have a much clearer picture, I think, when that happens.
Michael McKee from Bloomberg Radio and Television. Even though you've cut rates by 100 basis points this year, we haven't seen much change in mortgages, auto loan rates, or credit card rates. You say you're significantly restrictive. Are you running a risk that the markets are fighting against you and the economy could be more at risk of a slowdown than you anticipate?
So the rates that you talked about are really longer run rates, and they are affected to some extent by Fed policy, but they're also affected by many other things. And longer rates have actually gone up quite a bit since September, as you well know, and those are the things that drive, for example, mortgage rates more than short-term rates do. So we look at that, but we look at all financial conditions, and then we look at what's happening in the economy. So what we see happening in the economy, again, is, most forecasters have been calling for a slowdown in growth for a very long time, and it keeps not happening. So we're now well into another year of growth that looks like it might be 2.5%. Second and third quarters were right about at the same level. So the U.S. economy is just performing very, very well, substantially better than our global peer group. And there's no reason to think a downturn is any more likely than it usually is. So the outlook is pretty bright for our economy. We have to stay on task, though, and continue to have restrictive policy so that we can get inflation down to 2%. We're also going to be looking out for the labor market. We want to keep the labor market pretty close to where it is. We're pretty close to estimates of the natural rate of unemployment. Job creation is a little below the level that would keep it there, but nonetheless close. And so that's what our policy is trying to achieve.
If I could follow up by asking about your formulation for beginning rate cuts included the phrase, we need to have confidence that inflation is moving down towards our target. Given the fact that you've raised your forecast for next year, do you have confidence or are you uncertain about the path of inflation going forward?
So confidence was our test for raising rates. And, we made, look at the broader sweep. We've made just a great deal of progress. We're well into the twos in core inflation and around 2.5 or even lower than that we have been for headline inflation. So I would say I'm confident that inflation has come down a great deal, and I'm confident in the story about why it's come down and why that portends well. And I'll tell you why. You do see with housing services inflation, which is one that we've really worried about, it really has come down now quite steadily at a slower pace than we thought, 2 years ago. But it's nonetheless steadily coming down as market rents, start to equilibrate better with, new leases that turn over. Not new tenants, but new leases. Market rents is new leases. So that's happening. That process is ongoing pretty much as we expect. Goods inflation, which is another big piece of it, has returned right to the range where it was before the pandemic. Just for some months this year, it kind of moved up in a bumpy way because of used cars and things like that. But we think overall that should generally be in the range it was in. That leaves non-housing services, and market-based non-housing services are in good shape. It's non-market services, and those are services that are imputed rather than measured directly, and they don't. We think they don't really tell us much about the about tightness in the economy. They don't really reflect that. A good example is financial services, which is really done off of asset prices. And that's how that inflation works. So the overall picture, the story of why inflation should be coming down, is still intact. In particular, the labor market. Look at the labor market. It is cooler by so many measures now, modestly cooler than it was in 2019, a year when inflation was well under 2%. So it's not a source of inflationary pressures. Not to say there aren't regional and particular professions where labor is tight. But overall, you're not getting inflationary impulses of any significance from the labor market. So what's the story? The story is still just we're unwinding from these large shocks that the economy got in 2021 and 22 in, for example, housing services, and now also in insurance in particular, where costs went up, and those are now being reflected later in housing insurance. It's real inflation, but it doesn't portend persistently high inflation. So we and most other forecasters still feel that we're on track to get down to 2%. It might take another year or two from here, but I'm confident that that's the path we're on. And, our policy will do everything it can to assure that that is the case.
Colby.
Thank you. Colby Smith with the Financial Times. So the unemployment rate as of November, while still very low, is within spitting distance of the level that generated a lot of concern about the labor market over the summer in the lead up to the 50 basis point cut in September. Hiring has also narrowed to just a handful of sectors. But now the committee appears comfortable skipping cuts at upcoming meetings. So what has changed about the committee's assessment of the risks confronting the labor market? Is there just less concern now on that front? Or is it just about there being more upside risk to inflation that now needs to be accounted for?
The unemployment rate is now the same as it was in July, 4.2%. It's moved up and down, but it's now the same as July. Job creation is lower than it has been, but it's been steady. It's not declining. It's steady at a level which, as I pointed out a couple of times, is actually below the level that would hold the unemployment rate constant, but it's not so far below. So you might, if we have the break-even level right, and if job creation continues at that level in the establishment survey, then you would get a tenth maybe every other month kind of thing. So gradually declining. But we don't have that kind of precision in this. So you're right, though. And I read out some of the reasons. We do think the labor market is still cooling by many measures, and we're watching that closely. It's not cooling in a quick or in a way that really raises concerns. I think you pointed out participants in the FOMC really thought that the risks and uncertainty had improved relative to the labor market, and it's because things have just gotten a little bit better. It doesn't, the unemployment rate flat and things like that. Nonetheless, we're watching it closely.
If the idea, though, is that no additional kind of softening the labor market is welcome here, what's to prevent that from happening if rates are still restrictive?
So what I said is we don't think we need further softening to get to 2% inflation. That's what I'm saying. Not that it's not welcome. We don't need it, we don't think. If you had a situation where inflation is moving around by a tenth every few months, that's, we'd have to weigh that against the fact that inflation has in recent months been moving sideways in the 12-month window. And so we've got to weigh them both. Yeah. And at this point, for a while there, we were only really focused, mainly focused on inflation. We've now gotten to a place where the risks of the two are, we think, are roughly in balance. And so that's how we think about it.
Steve.
Mr. Chairman, I did not hear you use the word recalibration today. And I'm just wondering if the recalibration phase is over and what you might call this new phase and whether the criteria for changing rates is somehow different and higher than it was before. Thanks.
We're not renaming the phase yet, but we may get around to that. But no, I would say we are, though, in a new phase in the process, as I said. So, and that's just because we've reduced our policy rate by 100 basis points. We're significantly closer to neutral.
Trump fire kubloy. I know the big five traffic skull. Trump fire kubloy. وحوات بالطعمي صبوق زي كونه زربايو صبوق زي كونه ريبورتي مالتي زلو I know it but it's okay what happened دحان ودا يمو قرب نشتي سامر هنقبرنا ماركتنا كله ريد كوينو داون كوينو تخكلي yes of course مخنيات يلون يا let's go.
Still think where we are is meaningfully restrictive, and I think from this point forward, it's appropriate to move cautiously and look for progress on inflation. We've done a lot to support economic activity by cutting 100 basis points, and that's a good thing. I support the decision, and I think it was the right decision to make. I think from now, we are in a place where the risks really are in balance, and we need to see progress on inflation, and that's how we're thinking about it. So it is kind of a new thing. We moved pretty quickly to get to here, and I think going forward, obviously, we're going to be moving slower, which is consistent with the SEP.
I wonder if I could follow up and ask you how much you or the committee are looking through some of the high numbers we've had in the recent inflation numbers. For example, cars being up maybe because of the hurricanes, eggs because of the avian flu, that kind of stuff, and then looking forward perhaps to housing inflation coming down as it did in the recent report.
So we always try to be careful about not throwing out the numbers we don't like. It's just occupational hazard is to look, oh, those high months are wrong. What about the low months? We have a very low month potentially in November. It's estimated by many to be in the mid-teens for core PCE. So that could be idiosyncratically low. We try to look at not just a couple.
And financial conditions could undermine progress on your inflation target?
So we do look carefully at financial conditions. Of course, that's part of what we do. But we really look carefully at is the performance of our goal variables and how are we affecting the economy. So what we've seen over the course of just take the last year, we've seen inflation over the last couple of years come down a lot. We've seen the labor market cool off quite a bit. That suggests that our policy is restrictive. We can also look more directly at the parts of the economy that are affected by that are interest sensitive, like particularly housing. Housing activity is very low, and that's partly significantly because of our policy. So we think our policy is working, it's transmitting, and it's having the effects on our goal variables that we would want. A lot of things move financial conditions around, as you know, and we don't really control those. But I'd say we see the effects we're hoping to see on the goal variables and the places where we'd expect to see it.
So if I may, speaking of assets that have been buoyant, do you see any value or benefit in the U.S. government building a reserve of Bitcoin? We're not allowed to own Bitcoin. The Federal Reserve Act says what we can own, and we're not looking for a law change. That's the kind of thing for Congress to consider, but we are not looking for a law change at the Fed.
Andrew.
Happy holidays, Mr. Chairman. Thanks for taking our questions. I was wondering if you are satisfied with the way 2024 is ending, if you're confident that we've avoided the recession that forecasters were predicting as inevitable a couple years ago.
I think it's pretty clear we've avoided a recession. I think growth this year has been solid. It really has. PDFP, private domestic final purchases, which we think is the best indicator of private demand, is looking to come in around 3% this year. This is a really good number. Again, the U.S. economy has just been remarkable, and it's in these international meetings that I attend, this has been the story, is that how well the U.S. is doing. And if you look around the world, there's just a lot of slow growth and continuous struggles with inflation. I feel very good about where the economy is and the performance of the economy, and we want to keep that going.
The other thing I just wanted to ask about was the you guys have noted that the unemployment rate is still low. However, employment rates have fallen rather quickly. The prime age employment rate has fell by about half a percent rather recently. The question, I guess, is, do you think there's maybe more downside momentum in the labor market than the unemployment rate alone is signaling?
I don't think so. No, I think overall, if you look at it, prime age participation is still very high. What's going on in the labor market is that the hiring rate is low. So if you have a job, you're doing very well, and layoffs are very low, right? So people are not losing their jobs in large numbers, unusually large numbers. If you are looking for a job, though, the hiring rate is low, and that's a signal of lower demand. It has come down. So we look for signs like that, and that's clearly a sign of softening, further softening. I didn't mention it earlier, but I think you can see an ongoing gradual softening in the labor market. Again, not something we need to see to get 2% inflation. And that's part of the reason that explains why we moved ahead today with the action. policy balances the risks. We think the risks are roughly in balance as between the two mandates. And we think the labor market is in solid shape. And when I say it's softening or cooling, it's a very gradual process. Job creations are meaningfully positive. Wages are, if anything, still a bit above what would be sustainable if productivity were to revert to its longer run trend. If you take into account the high productivity readings we've had, then wages are already at a sustainable level relative to 2% inflation. So I don't want to overstate the downside in the labor market, because the downsides clearly appear to have diminished. Nonetheless, it's one of our mandate goals, and we pay close attention to it. And it's worth noting that it is still gradually cooling, and in an orderly way. And that's how I would characterize it, and that's why we're paying careful attention.
Elizabeth.
Thanks so much, Chair Powell. Elizabeth Schulze from ABC News. As you've noted, the Fed is now forecasting higher inflation next year. High prices are still a burden for so many households right now. Why do you think it is that inflation is proving to be more stubborn than you'd expected?
It breaks down into a long answer if you want, but it just has been a little bit more stubborn. I think if you go back 2 or 3 years, many people were saying that to get this far down, we would have had to have had a deep recession and high unemployment by now. Well, that has not been the case. So, the path down has actually been much better than many predicted. We've managed to have the unemployment rate remain essentially at its longer run natural rate, while inflation has come down from, core PCE inflation has come down from 5.6% to 2.8% on a 12-month basis. So that's a pretty good outcome. Why hasn't it come down? One reason is that just a technical issue around the way we calculate housing services, and that process has been slower than market rents are showing up more slowly in that measure than we might have thought 2 years ago. So that's part of it. I think there are other parts of the story, but what I think people are feeling right now is the effect of high prices, not high inflation. So we understand very well that prices went up by a great deal, and people really feel that. And it's prices of food and transportation and heating your home and things like that. So there's tremendous pain in that burst of inflation that was very global. This was everywhere in all the advanced economies at the same time. So now we have inflation itself is way down, but people are still feeling high prices. And that is really what people are feeling. The best we can do for them, and that's who we work for, is to get inflation back down to its target and keep it there so that people are earning, big real wage increases, so that their wages are going up, their compensation is going up faster than inflation year upon year upon year. And that's what will restore people's good feeling about the economy. That's what it will take, and that's what we're aiming for.
And as we look ahead to next year, what do you see as the biggest challenge to the economy under the next administration?
I feel very good about where the economy is. Honestly, I'm very optimistic about the economy, and we're in a really good place. Our policy's in a really good place. I expect another good year next year.
Edward.
Thanks, Chair Powell, for doing the questions. Edward Lawrence from Fox Business. So you say that we're closer to the neutral rate. What % do you see, and the committee believes, where is that neutral rate?
So I'll say a couple of things. First of all, when we write, the thing we write down in the summary of economic projections is the longer run neutral rate, which is the neutral rate at a time when supply and demand are in balance, the full economy is in balance, and no shocks are hitting the economy. That is not where we are right now. So when we're making monetary policy at the Fed, that's not the question we're asking. So you can't do a straight read between those longer run numbers that we write down and what we think the appropriate policy should be. So basically, at any given time, various shocks are hitting the economy. And so what we're doing in real time is we're looking at our policy stance, and we're looking at the way it's hitting the economy. And particularly, we look at the effects it's having as we try to move the economy toward maximum employment and price stability. And the answer can be, there are things that affect the economy that are lasting but not permanent. And the ones that are permanent are the ones that would be in our star. The ones that could be lasting, but nonetheless go away over time, they could actually affect what's sort of technically the appropriate neutral stance in near term. So we're looking at that, and we don't know exactly where it is, but as I like to say, we know it by its works. And I think what we know for sure is that we're 100 basis points closer to it right now. There are many estimates of where that might be, and we know we're a lot closer to it. And I think we're in a good place, but I think from here, it's a new phase, and we're going to be, cautious about further cuts.
But I think that the markets are looking for a little more clarity. I mean, I've heard estimates from 2.9% to 4%. I think the markets would like to see a little more clarity about a year out, 18 months out, as to where that goalpost, for lack of a better term, is, because at the moment it looks big.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, there are countless models of what a neutral rate might be at any given time. There are empirical models, there are theoretical models, there are things that combine them, and they have as many different answers as you'd like. So there is no real certainty. And I mean, it's actually a good thing to know that we don't know exactly where it is. So you're not tempted to think, oh, I think this model or this estimate is right. You just have to be open to the empirical data that are coming in, and also how it's affecting the outlook. And it's not made any easier by the fact that that our policy works with long and variable lags. Nonetheless, that is the job we have, and so I think it's appropriate for us now to proceed cautiously, now that we're 100 basis points closer to neutral, and we'll do so. Meanwhile, the economy seems to be in therefore are not really good predictors of future inflation. So it turns out that core inflation is a better predictor of overall inflation than overall inflation is. So we look at core inflation because it's a better measure of what future inflation is likely to be because it's a better measure of what inflation pressures exist. So it's complicated, but ultimately our goal is headline, not core. So your second question was what?
Why do you all see core going down, but headline potentially taking up?
So headline can be affected. You're talking about next year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So headline can be affected by energy prices and food prices. So that there will be things in the headline forecast that are to do with forecasts of energy prices, whereas core will be. If you look at core going out a full year, then it'll be much more driven by things like tightness in the economy. So that's why the two can go in different directions. Headline has been lower, as you know, most of this year, but that's because energy prices have been coming down, which is a great thing for people, but energy prices will come down and then they will go up, and it won't really be telling us anything about how tight the economy is and how future inflation will perform.
Do geopolitical risks factor in at all to how you're thinking about energy prices?
We monitor geopolitical risks really quickly, but really carefully rather. But I would say so far those risks nothing has come out of those risks that has really been important for the United States economy. The single thing that you would look to is the price of oil, given that we're talking about the Middle East and Ukraine, but that is a good summary statistic for the kind of thing that could go wrong with global turmoil. But the price of oil has been coming down, and because of global supply conditions. So the U.S. is not feeling really the effects of geopolitical turmoil, but we are certainly at a time of elevated geopolitical turmoil, and it remains a risk.
Kelly.
Thanks, Chair Powell. Kelly O'Grady from CBS News. I want to go back to something that you said a minute ago, that wage growth is outpacing inflation now. It wasn't the case for some time, of course. It's partly why Americans haven't felt much relief in their wallets from prices yet. But with inflation ticking up, how worried are you the progress in closing that gap could go away?
Yeah, so inflation, again, we don't react to a couple of months of higher readings or a couple of months of lower readings. And what we had was we had 4 months of really nice readings, and then September and October were higher, but then November is much lower. So I don't really think the public is experiencing that as a surprising upside risk to inflation. I think inflation is much lower. What the public is feeling, and they're right about it, is that prices are just, the price level went up because of the past inflation. And it's going to take some time for real wages to recover over a period of years in which your real compensation is growing. And in other words, your compensation is growing meaningfully faster than inflation. That's exactly the kind of economy we have now. And we just want to hold on to it. That process will probably take some years, but that's what's going on right now. And I don't think that a couple of months of higher inflation really signal that anything of the nature you're suggesting.
And just one follow-up, let's look more long-term. You previously predicted hitting the 2% inflation target in 2026. It's now been pushed out to 2027. You said you're focused on enabling further progress on inflation. That's not necessarily progress in the right direction. Are you confident that target isn't going to move further out?
We're talking about when you're projecting the economy, 3 years out, 2 years out, you're talking about high uncertainty. Very high uncertainty. We really, at that point, that's not possible to confidently predict where the economy is going to be in 3 years. So what we're doing is we're looking at what's happening now, and we're kind of projecting that the same kinds of things are happening. So we keep a strong labor market. Housing services inflation comes down. Goods inflation settles down, and non-market services return to their prior level. All of those things should happen over time. And those pieces come together. There's every reason to think that they will. The timing of it is highly uncertain. But you're not wrong, though, that, it's been a bit frustrating because while we've made progress, it has been slower than we had hoped. Nonetheless, we're still on track. And, I think if 2 years ago you'd said we were at 4.2% unemployment and 2.8% inflation, people would say, I'll take that. I mean, that's a pretty good interim place to be. Job's not done, but I think we're feeling good about where we are and where we're headed.
Go to Nancy for the last question.
Hi, Chair Powell, Nancy Marshall-Genzer from Marketplace. You said a couple times inflation has been moving sideways, appears to be settling in around, 2.5%. Do you think the Fed is just going to have to settle for that and accept that you're not going to get to your 2% target?
No, we're not going to settle for that. I think we certainly have every intention and expectations that we'll get inflation back sustainably to 2%. That is, and I am confident we will achieve that. It has taken longer, but you have to be, we are making progress. We have made a great deal of progress, and we'll continue to do so and get back to 2% inflation. That's what we owe the public, and we're committed to achieving it.
In that case, can you rule out a rate hike next year?
You don't rule things completely in or out in this world. That doesn't appear to be a likely outcome. I think we're at 4.3%. That's meaningfully restrictive, and I think it's a well-calibrated rate for us to continue to make progress on inflation while keeping a strong labor market. So, thank you very much.
That right there, arguably not the Federal Reserve's finest hour. After reducing interest rates by 25 basis points straight out of the gate in that news conference, asked an obvious question. Why do this when you're expecting inflation to remain above target? The chairman acknowledging today was a closer call, that we've cut interest rates by 100 basis points across 3 meetings.
All right, let's go. Wrap up, guys. Okay. All right, let's back. Thank you. Yeah, guys, بزح حسابات لكم. Thank you for اسقاب هجي مصنعكم. Overall, سمعكم لكم our market is red and red and red and red. I have this computer in here too. Summary. Okay. مجمرة نبتي تأشمو كنكيد. Okay, where I am. Okay, let's go. So far, see أبي علنا market نانتاي مثل money vest. Let me find this one. I like it. It's all red. Market connection. Okay, S&P. Look this what S&P as of now today لما عن تطرح almost 974 billion, almost 974 billion. Like this is lose كيرا هجي 974 billion مالت نحن 3.4 تريليون مالتي 900. سمع الله خدوسكي سمع الله خدو صبو سمع الله right let me know please سمع انت اللي So, 974 billion, almost 100 trillion below. So, هجلو ما عنت لزجرا S&P مالتي. As of now, S&P. So, كلنا كريم كلنا بنقول إن اندحرينا تن big series بحالا مالت Apple, Nvidia, and Microsoft. كندا يخون داون جرا لو ما عنت 220 حدا نتشو عن 5 بليون لزجرا على إذن ميجا 7 بحالا كلنا هلو هم تنشوعاتين Apple كلنا ميجا 7 كا almost 400 بليون لزجرا. As of now, marketنا جنا دحر فرق ساعات هاي still فرق ساعات هلو. إذن تابتين زبالها almost 504 بليون. Overall كره قلنا S&P 974 نتبشدش بليون لزجرنا لنا لما أنتي ماركتنا. So نتقلالنا بكالكن كده كلنا very bad. Okay. In general ندحر كدنا إنانون one by one as entire زي كجبر إدحان. ندحر إنايو أبزين ندحر كنا like you know CNBC ندحر كنا yeah it's bad أحوات the report is not good like down is unusual 625 BP down gear low and then S&P is 108 and then Nasdaq is almost 486 Russell is 68 Russell is fine. So زين كلن تن إندكسين زين بمول أنت الريفن زلوا كامباني تاتين مالته نازداك سبيشالي كدوم كلن بعد تسلا بالكل تن تك كامباني حيزن زركبان S&P قاتن حمش من سلسلة زر أنين مالته ومس شعت ميزين سبعان قلم لم بيلن لز جيران زلوا راسل كاتن small cap كامباني تاتين كلن لز جيران yeah VIX is up كونا لوزي تي market volatility مالته of course green coin لسه مالته bad report all right bonds ندحر كنا 10 respond up gear low almost 0.1 almost 0.10% مالتي yes okay bond up coin low okay not Japan no UK bond مالتي ازين تاعي ابزي خلنا زي ريبورت زي خلنا لو ما انتي احوات let me say as one كوغبرو yes نابزي وندحر one by one ندحر مصينا احوات let me stop this okay it's summer خبوكم يا دحان don't worry ابو مداتا one by one in the haircut now I have like my Webull account. Look, Tesla is 439. Okay, Tesla is about 414, 415 in the Gabriel while it comes for the last. So I don't want to say anything, but this is good one. Okay, so market na kullu bumulu reda lo like only Nvidia ترى حيالا Nvidia high بس حنيرة عن تبو almost 3 سنة شديشة 3 سنة ب4 increase جراس لسه أنا حتى راح يخال ولا حنتي بمول أن ردا lo عملتي. So yeah, Tesla is just kind of making an opportunities in her أحوات مالي. إذا مالي temporary أحوات temporary. Okay. Okay. What else do we have? Okay. All right. That's all. Okay. I got in here a summary. Overall summary. Let me have this in here. All right. لما أنت federalist comes أنا Jerome Powell ماتيو rate. كاتن مقباري already is ثلاث عامات تسعين نبرنا عم changes قبره ذلو so rate قرص ديو أي قرص ديو إمبري خبل زنبرة ماركتنا يتصبيني rate كات كمز قبل rate ولا كأولد قرص مهانو تتصبينا هنا ولد بزيرو نتبع 25 قرص أمه Fed's fund rate نانا هجي as of now ناب كندي وريدو لون تلكموني CME Fed كن كيرينا نحنا فيدس فاند ريت أبز ساعات زي the most important مجمرة تنيركم نزارب النيرنا أنا حوات the most important نحنا ناب 4.25 كبر 4.25 كسب 4.5 داون كيلو that is a good one حدا نجارو تصبق نجارو أتي rate زبي 0.25 ريت كاتجرمي مالتي أوكي تصبق انتاي دا ماركتنا 5 جرو نزبل حتى تثبيت أوكي فيد unemployment تثبيت مالتي تثبيت يغير وزلو unemployment rate نعمتها كلتش عن 25 نابر 4.3% خوني خيلي still تصبقني وسيحوات unemployment rate نابر 4.3% خوني نزبل قمت تصبقي مهنيات أبز حلفة لعلى 4.4% يوم حاسب منيرو مالتي تصبق نجاري economy ناوي كا GDP هنا growth كجبر وطبعا خعب خا كاب كل تنت بزيرو ناب كل تنت بحدا increase جبري نعمتها نحنا recession ويكا soft landing مودا ماركت نتصبنا برنا يلا نبلنا له انتاي دا inflation متسعل بلنا له تاسو هذا concept الساعة اوكي انتاي مزبلنا زلو اوكي نحنا ماركتنا وريقيو ماركتنا هودقيو recession كرن خلنا نعمتها زي نتصبنا برنا انتاي دا تسلا رايوال look at the تحوات اندحر تسلا نا almost 415 كتبت حنا all times highs نبرتنا كسلس عملنا وداون كتكيت خلع good time man okay so اتينا هنا GDP اندحر كوسخ كوينو صبو as of نايز عمد 2.8 ودينا لنا GDP اندحر كوسخ كوينو عمتها صبو unemployment اندحر لون كوينو صبو اوكي ازي اندحر كله صبو كوينو ازي اندحر كله صبو كوينو انتاي رالت زي صبو زبحال دلو اتي inflation still allo PC inflation أمودة عمتنا عمتها كل تشحن 25 عمود ملو كهولي أمودة next year كسب 2.5% كهولي إبلنا له تثبتنا بزحلفة 2.1 كهولونا inflation no more question إنا نبلنا still inflation ألنا market that's why لو معنتي جيروم باول متين تاجرو نزخلو inflation allo نعمتها أبزمت عمت كل تشحن 25 كل تجزية راح ناكات نجبر له كل تجزية كات يكبرون يخلوا حوا كل تجزية ريت كاتون زي كجبر حزني نتايرا inflation عند حركة يدخل عاد كل تجزية إلى ما زلومي بثلاث تجزية 4 تجزية ريت كات كهول يخل that is the news إزاي أطرحها نحنا أبزمت عمد ولدنا كقنص ندولي زلنا فيرس فاند ريت بخل تجزية راحي مهنيات أمودات أنا عمتاس كسب 3 سنة شعته يصبيو allo so يصبيو allo okay that is how it is all right كم ويز بنا 50 ويكا 5 base point يوم base point ويكا كل تجزية 0.25 أو كل تشحن 25 ريت كبريم ندقنا أكل تشحن 26 كا كل تجزية راح يمكورتو بالتعني لما عن تجرم باول تاف كوين يمتي أزيو خبير كوين يمتي حوار رايو استيل نايكل تشحن 26 كاي طرفه كل تجزية راح نقورت بلالو سو ماركتنا انتايلو ماي جودنس كل تشحن 25 كل تشحن 26 سي ستيل ولا هاي كهلو ام ماركتنا بلو يس كم ينبلو اذا نغرات قير خلو يس اوكي هيز كامينج ترامب دونت وري اباوت ات اذا قير خلي صقم زبحاله يكلن اذا كن opportunity يفطري مالت حوات انا مجمر حبشه اديوكيشن ابزي مصينا زل لوك ذس ماركت انتاي يخون انتاي مص فدرال انتاي قبرو إذا خدم مهارة راح يدلاني إذا داون مخان ريد بازر يجبر كاري دسبله never بازر يجبر الناعي تسلا at the end of the year حموش ميت خص بيه I'm telling you حموش ميت خص بيه there is something تلوت تزل أنت زي كون حموش ميتي بتقر خلته يخون حموش ميتي نورمال كتس بينا مالتي so إذا كن already صباح لومي أجرجرنا ماركت فترة لا that's why red كون يدل مالتي alright so قال 6 of 8 meeting will be present 2025 okay حدا كابتم 10 ساعات حزني لايك حدا لكم يعني تو ابتدات حدا كابتم 10 ساعات سباتي من تازو سنو حدا خاو امسي اوفيشال نوكات اب كل تشن 25 يلو ود سبيتي تايز هنا تازي بعلى قبل حدا غاب مالتي alright سلسه كابتم 10 ساعات خا حنصاب كاتيلو look this اريهم 10 كابتم 10 ساعات خا كلته كاتيلو so that means كلته كات نصبلنا كلته ريت مقراص مالتي اوكي اوكي قال كم ويزمنا جي دي بي ناب كل تنت بحدا جرو مقبارو كاب كل تنت بسيرو بتعمل صبق نجاري it's very lovely economy grow قبرالو solid allo صبق allo that's a good thing you know كاب دي صبق انتاير وسير كادس بلا تلكم economy ناسي نابرس شن كاين خون رحنا نفرح واحد already that's okay نحنا recession كايودق ماركتنا كايودق طرحنا نفرح نبر اذا خمس لنا نغزي خنكايد دخلنا inflation كساب زخيد مالتي recession no more recession لمنالو مالتي سغتي terminal rate still okay economy growing as solid okay roughly balanced risk okay well okay inflation so labor market ሰራሕተኛታት unemployment little cool down ኮይኖ ምክንያቱ ሃይዝ ነበረና ኣብዚ ሓለፈ ሃይ ክኸውን unemployment ሃይ ክኸውን ነበረ ሕጂ already ሃይ ክኸውን ይብለና እዚኣ ግን ማዓስ ከተወድቕ ኣፅላ ለሲ Q1 2025 ንጸበይ ሕዋት Q1 2025 እንድሕር labor marketና ኣዝዩ ጽቡቕ እንድሕር ሪፖርት ረኺብና ከም ዝርአ ዘለና 4.2 4.3 4.3% ተረኺብና ካብ Q like 2 ዳ ጸገም ኮይብልና ትራምፕ መጽኡ ከመዓራረዩ ማርኬትና another inflation ክፈጥር ሕጂ ሙሉ እንታይ ገብርሎ overall okay ትራምፕ መጽኡ ብዛዕባ ታክሲ ክቕይሮ እዩ ዝብዘሎ ታክሲ ብራኬት okay ብዛዕባ ተረፍ ናይ ኩለን ክቕይሮ እዚ ኩሉ ናይ ትራምፕ ዘረባ ኢንፍሌሽን ገንዘብ ሞር ፕሪንት ክመጽኡ ንጅሮም ፓወል ሬት ካት ክኸውን ኣሎ እዚ ሓደ መምረፂ እዩ ትራምፕ oil ናግድን ክንገብር ኣለና እዚ ብሙሉ እዚ እንታይ ገርወሎ ሕጂ ድሮብ ኣለ ሎማ ዓንቲ ንማርኬትና ብሙሉ ኣሲርዎ ኸይድሎ that's a job to do that's a job to do ስሩዕ ሳያ ማለት እዩ so yeah inflation is still አይከደኒ overall ክንርኦ ከለና ማለት እዩ still ኣብ ማርኬትና ኣሎ ስለምንታይ ንዝብል ሕቶ ስለምንታይ ኣብዚ ሓለፈ ቆሪጽካ 50 ቀልጢፍኩም ቆሪጽኩም em ዝብልዎ ነይሮም yes ቀልጢፍና ዘይኮና just ርኢና like unemployment ሽዑ ሃይ ኸይድ ነይሩ እዩ حقيقة هجها unemployment slow كوين لو مالت صبوا نقول so overall كريو خلنا this is like this summer كريو خلنا نتاي نايلو مع انت report very bad in our economy جن حدث صبوا نقول كاب نتاي we recession وكأمودا market كأين رئنا نفرح نيرنا هنا سلزي laborنا strong يبلنا لو okay نفرح نيرنا هنا نتاي را زي temporary ناي market مودا يا كغير سخودلو عدل الله نتاي خد فترة بس خمس غركب كله نا personal advice እንታይ ዳ ገንዘብ ተሊካ opportunity ወይ ካዓ ዕድል ረኺብካ ኣለኻ ናይ ምግዛእ ማለት እዩ ካልእ ወልሓንቲ የለን እዚ ምንም ኢንፍሌሽን እኳ እዮም ዝብል ዘለዎ recession ተዝብል ነይሩ another way ህጅራዮ recession ተንፈርህ ነርና like እንታይ ብዘለኹ ምውዳቕ ማርኬት ተንፈርህ ነርና ወይ ካዓ እሱን ተዝኸር ነርና ያ ሸጥካ ክትወፅእ ትኽእል ካልእ ክትኮን ትኽእል okay inflation ኣለ still we gonna just go smooth ማለት እዩ so I like somebody ኣብዚኣ ጽሕፋ ነበረ ፓኒክ ኣይንኹን ኣከም ዝኸውን ከሎ በቃ ግርግር ንፈጥር ሕዋት እንታይ ስለዘይንሎም ዶ እቲ ማርኬትና ውን ሓደሽ ስለዝኾና ሕጂ እንታይ ክመጽእ ክሊ በቃ መክሰብ ረኺበለኹ 1000 2000 10000 ክሸጥ ኣለኒ no በቃ ሕጂ እንታይ ዳ already እንድሕር ንስኻ ዓቕሚ ረኺብካ ዓቕሚ ለካ ኮይኑ opportunity ከረኺብካ ዘለኻ ዕድለም ከፊቶም ልካ ዘሎ ሕሲሮም ልካ ኣሎ ዋጋታት ነገራት ማለት እዩ ስለዚ እንተተኸልካ ሰለፍ ምባል ና personal advice ኣይኮነን እዚ ማለት እንታይ ዳ so እዚ ተፈጢሩ ዘሎ ማለት እዩ ካልእ بعابي معرخ ندي صلوا اتي ماكرو ايكونومي حوات ماركت كو ودي قايلو اينبل اينردا بخوم ايكونومي let's see what is market happening all right but that's it simple هوري خلا so جيروم باول لما عندي تصاويت لنا يخيدو جن كنصبيا انا calendar ازمت let me go where is my economic calendar did I took that out let me write it okay yes صباح still paying كل خليو maybe some of the kind of عقرقر فترة like سابد مود جن still زي لو وطلو مخنيات ولا حنتي لنا زي أدابت خنقبرنا صباح نقول alright أبزمت مالت حامس صباح انتهى لنا sorry yes حامس صباح انتهى لنا initial jobs claim look this تاجري بين بلازلنا some amount data عامت كل تشحن 2.1 as بزلو 2.8 راح رازلنا still we good that's it 2.1 كأجر مالت زي آخر أنا revision على صباح زي 2.9 ويك كون اللي على دحر متيا ماركتنا صباح زي أخذ قيرات غليا then دحر صباح the most important هلتكم عربي زي أدري وازلهم PC زي أبزي أزل لحوات راي وازيا 2.5 تبل زلا amount data لك زي أسي amount data عمت أخر أنا زبدلو زي 2.5 زلا نتصبح لنا ماركت كوينو تعرفوا كابو نتاحتي كابز 2.5 نتاحت ندحر رغبنا ماركتنا قرن غير خيلص اجا ما يكون مخنيات زيا سلازل ازغل عقرقر فتره لنا زلنا عنا مالي زيا سي ستيل الله امز بلا زلو عندنا زي كور بي سي خا 2.8 انصبلنا زي اخا خا 2.9 داون ندحرينا يس زي ان اللوا انفليشن ماركتنا ستيل الله انفليشن ماركتنا سلازلو نعمتا كلتا غزي طرحنا ريت كات نغبر ولا قرا مخنياتو تامامينا عينا unemployment نحنا strong الله and then inflation ግን ኣሎ እንታይ ዳ recession no more. alright Tesla family after group na hajja አገርግርሎ Tesla family ኣብ ገዛና ማለት Tesla family ገዛለና ናይ ተማሃሮ okay በመቀጠል this is good to me yeah opportunities my friend opportunities okay yeah of course yeah down ክርን ኸሊና but it's not a big deal ብዙሕ ነገር አይኮነን wibbles okay wibbles no wibbles down ብዙሕ ነገር አይኮነን yeah Tesla is kind of stick with 430 ገለመለን still ካብኡን ታሕትን ተወሪዳ ቁርብ ሽግሪ ናብ 450 all right so this is how we have the report today ለማ ዓንት ማለት ሕዋት so let's see what happened this is what we have the good thing is እንታይና ንርኢ ዝጽቡቕ ነገሩ like how I never seen ክሳብ ክንዲ ዝኾን ሰባት 250 200 ገለን አይ ጠቕላላ ይረአኹን I'm so happy to see you guys ከምዚ ለኽርኢ ከለኹ I'm so happy ምክንያቱ we are learning ንመሃር ኣለና እንታይ ቁጠባና ከውድኽል እንታይ ክፈጥረልና ይሆን ዕድል ኣለና ዶ ካልእ እንታይ መስል ንመሃር ንርኢ thank you so much ኣብዚ ምህላውኩም ኣዚና በቃ so happy ሓበሻ education ካብ ዝነበረና ሞራል ሂብኩምና ኣለኹም ምክንያቱ ሞራልና እንታይ ኣብዚ ምህላውኩም ትመሃሩ ኣለኹም so እስኹም ኢንቨስት ክገብሩ ከለኹም you know that what to do ማለት you know that by the way ለማ ዓንተ ሓደ ሓይትን ትሬድ ጌርካ ንዝብል no ትሬድ ኣይገበርኩን ትሬድ ዝገብር ነረ ከሲቦም ወጻኹ ነረ almost 12k ማለት ግን ኣይገበርኩን ስቂለና ዳውን ኮይነ that's okay ጽባሕ next week ምለሲ so good ነገር ኣብዚ ጽባሕ እንድሕር ጽባሕ ዘለና ከኸበናይ thank you so much that's all ነዊሕና ገርና life this is good learning love it great thank you let's see this is በቃ እዚ ይሰርሕ ካልኦ ሓንቲ ይብልና ማርኬትና በእንታይ ይኮይኑ እንታይ ይኮይኑ ተከ በዚ ንብሎ ዘለና ጥራሕ ይሰርሕ ማለት all right guys thank you I'll see you bye bye no but I don't do trade options I don't do options no but I'm learning it yes valid yeah but ትምህርት ተማይረ again still I kind of needed some little thing to go for it all right guys thank you bye bye